Howdy folks, Jambriki here. There are many popular animated villains that have deservedly ended up in the Hall of Fame. But what about the great cartoon baddies that slip through the cracks? In today's video, I'm going to be discussing animated rogues that deserve more love.
You can go, I can't stop you, but the kids are mine.
When the eccentric Captain New Eyes turns a bunch of dinosaurs intelligent, they end up befriending two runaway kids called Louie and Cecilia, who both want to work in the circus. Unfortunately, the nearest circus is run by the captain's evil brother, Screw Eyes. We're Back is a bonkers fever dream of a movie that works off of its own bizarre logic. Many people resent it for its surreal world building and erratic storytelling, but I've always been genuinely fascinated by its odd existence, and see it as one of my guilty pleasures. One aspect that I would actually unironically defend though, is its grippingly dark villain. A despicable rogue that's somehow deeply mysterious, yet also detailed in lore at the same time. Most would probably boil him down to just being an evil doppelganger of New Eyes, but he's so much more than that. Screw Eyes is a scummy businessman that has no ethical boundaries, a crooked ringmaster that does some pretty heinous things for a kids movie baddie, from making unsupervised and vulnerable children sign shady contracts in their very own blood.
They're under contract to me for a very long time.
To imprisoning their now de-evolved dinosaurs for cruel public entertainment.
Now, take 2 giant steps.
On top of this, he wields an inventory of disturbing tools, including drug-like pills that can reverse evolution, a radio that helps him to surveillance people's worst nightmares, and a snake-like eye that has the power to hypnotize. This is the kind of villain you'd expect to find in a horror film for adults, not a cartoon dinosaur flick for kids. There are layers to him though. Sure, we're not meant to feel sorry for him in the slightest, but there is a grim tragedy to the heart of his evil. A man that had his eye pulled out by a crow as a child, only to go insane from the trauma as he grew up, and has become an unhinged man who wants to cure his paranoia by exploiting others. So, while he excels as the host of a horror-themed stage show, behind closed curtains, he is actually a terrified old man that has traded all of his humanity for a chance to conquer his own anxiety and suffering.
The creature that scares you all does what I say. I am the master of fear, and I am not afraid!
Instead of seeking professional emotional support, or turning to his brother for family love, he has chosen a life of malice, all because he sees it as the easy way out. On the contrary though, his choice to reject everyone around him in favour of marinating in darkness is exactly how he becomes easy prey for the crows that have been stalking him.
When I have no one to scare, I get very frightened myself.
It's a brand new era about to begin.
After a special potion pollutes the ocean and intellectualizes a pilot fish called Joe and his shark buddy, a dark new underwater empire is born under Joe's lead. Joe is luckily voiced by a legendary British thespian, the late great Alan Rickman. His rich, elegant and smooth vocals go hand in hand with Joe's intense intellect and snobby sense of superiority.
I'm sufficiently intelligent to kill you if you don't stop bothering me.
So what?
It's a very theatrical performance that also perfectly fits Joe's highly underappreciated villain song, Intelligence, an atmospheric musical number that blends ominous factory beats.
Come join me and seize this opportunity.
With a creepily catchy propaganda jingle for its chorus. What engages me about Joe is that he isn't your generic anthro-animal villain. He's an exceptionally clever pilot fish that genuinely wants to become more human. Not just any human though, he wants to model himself on fascist dictators. His entire dystopian ocean takeover shifts this cutesy talking fish movie into a nautical horror film set in a steampunk nightmare, a world where sea life has advanced forward, but all at the cost of having to worship a cult leader who wants credit for playing God.
Prize your master. Now!
While Joe is not entirely human yet, he's still an incredibly tactical villain who knows how to retain control and get his way. Heck, it's this savviness that helps him to play ball with our heroes, the only ones who know the secret recipe to the potion, all by strategically using his ocean monopoly as a bargaining chip.
This is a great opportunity for a bright young fish like you. There's no limit to what we could accomplish together if you help me now.
I think that's what's so frightening about Joe as a villain, his stacked intelligence. He's not an easily fooled fish or someone who fails to adapt to changes in his plan. The man wants his potion and nothing will get in his way.
So sorry. I can't stay for dinner.
As in command as Joe is, his leadership role isn't as firm and strong as he maybe thinks it is. Sure, he's now smart enough to end his symbiotic relationship with Shark.
There's stuff in the cracks. Henceforth, oral hygiene is no longer my department.
However, a high IQ doesn't change the fact that Joe's underlings are physically stronger than him, and they could easily dethrone him if they wanted to, which they do. Thus, we end up with this back and forth fight for leadership that restructures the whole villain and minion formula through a military coup that inspires a constant power struggle.
I'm in charge!
This may not be the best time for this conversation!
I'll give the orders! I'm king! I'm boss! Ruler of the...
And remember how I said that Joe yearns to be more human? Well, that ironically ends up being his undoing, as our hero Fly cleverly uses reverse psychology to tap into Joe's desperate need to prove his human intelligence. And we get quite possibly one of the darkest children's movie villain defeats ever. A traumatizing scene that has haunted 2000s kids ever since we saw it.
Can a human breathe underwater?
Of course not!
You'll never get home. I'll make sure of that.
When a diphtheria outbreak affects all the children of an Alaskan town, a dog sledding team must be assembled to collect the medicine needed. So a race is held to decide the best canines, and our hero, Balto, wins. But he ends up being rejected because he's half wolf. So the ego-driven husky Steel leads the mission instead, only to get everyone lost. The villain design for Steel is just terrific. He's this very accurate depiction of a real husky breed, but there's an emphasis on the husky's more intimidating aspects, from his piercing blue eyes being accented by a harsh scowl to his bulky build adding a macho menace. Jim Cummings also gives Steel a raspy and gritty growl that laces every one of his lines with a guttural venom.
And when I come back, I'm gonna fold you 5 ways and leave you for a cat toy.
I would say that arrogance is the core of Steel. He's a husky that rests his entire worth and value on his reputation as a sled dog, which means that he's done zero work on building on his charm, thus resulting in having the personality of rotting fish.
Jenna, enjoy the race.
Yeah, almost as much as you did.
Below his gloating showmanship is a deeply insecure and fragile dog who can't handle being told that he's getting slow, or facing the slight chance that someone could be better than him.
Now, let's take a look at our winner here. Let's take a look at our winner.
It's like he knows how fickle his fame is, and it's so obvious that he's terrified of his stardom eclipsing. He overcompensates for this by bullying poor Balto at every chance, with Steel's attacks and insults stemming mainly from a prejudice against Balto's mixed species identity, an aspect of Balto's character that he's very self-conscious of.
I was the fastest dog.
You were the fastest. What?
You can really tell that the thin-skinned husky is deeply jealous of Balto though. Even if Balto is just a meter away from Steel, our villain burns with a green-eyed envy that he can't hide from the audience. Not only is Balto a faster sled dog than our baddie, but he also has a natural chemistry with Steel's crush, Jenna. While Steel's galaxy-sized ego makes his attempts at flattery or flirting intensely cringe.
Join me for dinner. You start at one end, I'll start at the other. And when we get to the middle, well...
Balto shows a genuine loving support for Jenna's concerns over her human owner Rosie, as well as a knack for natural romancing that comes from the heart. Balto is the charming ladies' man and good sports dog that the fragile Steel desperately wants to be seen as. Yet being like Balto means becoming a vulnerable man, which is completely out of the question for Steel. So whenever Steel tries to replicate his rival's character, it just comes off as creepy and insincere.
You're 100% right, Jenna. I wasn't thinking about those children. The important thing here is to get the medicine through, and that's just what I'm going to do.
Throughout the film, Steel overindulges in the glamour and dopamine of fan worship, yet isn't strong and mature enough to handle things going wrong. Whenever he faces an obstacle, his only instincts are either to cope with denial or belittle any judgment.
I know what I'm doing. It's this way. Come on.
When the medicine mission needs Balto's emergency aid, Steel's boiling insecurity explodes like a falling avalanche, with Steel doing all he can to stop Balto from helping the severely lost sledding team. In Steel's eyes, Balto is the dangerous party. What's most sickening about this conflict is that it shows that Steel cares way more about protecting his own pride than the innocent lives of dying children. It really takes a special flavor of evil for someone to prioritize their public reputation far above saving terminally ill kids. But that's Steel for you, a fake hero who puts the medicine's safe delivery at the very bottom of his list of concerns.
I'm the lead dog. I'm in charge.
Credit to Steel's antagonism though. His bright idea to screw up Balto's tree markings to make it near impossible for our hero to return safely is kind of diabolically genius and rather impressive, especially when you remember how many trees Balto was scratched along the way. Plus, this prank ends up being quite effective, as it sends Balto himself into a state of panic and conjures up distrust from his teammates.
Walter, why are you taking us in circles?
I'm not. I don't know. It's Steel.
Despite Steel's villainous efforts though, he ends up getting himself exposed, and I genuinely love how poorly he handles it all. After all of his vindictive manipulation and punching down of Balto, he just wimpily fizzles out once his celebrity bubble pops, going to show that shallow fame was the only thing that was keeping this insecure husky together mentally. It was his one piece of armor as a failure-fearing puppy.
Guys, wait just a second. Please.
Don't take me for a fool. I know what's best for you.
When Ben and his little sister Saoirse try to travel back home from their grandma's, poor Saoirse ends up being captured by owls and taken to a witch called Maka, who has been removing people's feelings and turning them to stone. Maka does remain off screen for a portion of the film, but her presence is still always felt, because her loyal owls are frequently preying on our heroes, and the folklore legend of our villain hangs over the kids.
Tomorrow's Halloween. Maka's owls might even come here and take Dad's feelings and turn him to stone.
Said fairytale gossip turns out to be not as black and white as we first thought though, because she's less of a force of dark evil and more of an empath who's turned rogue, a loving mother that tried to spare her son's suffering, only to become addicted to erasing all negative feelings from herself and others. That's not to say that she's simply some harmless sweet old lady though. She's still an entitled and scary sorceress with petrifying powers, who responds badly to rejection, and has gone the extra mile to lock her feelings collection.
Sorry, Coons.
Silly human child, the jars are enchanted. They cannot be broken by brute force.
It's also very fair to criticize her for thinking that she knows what's best for others, all while disregarding what her victims actually want, as she remains adamant about proving that her method is the best approach to healing pain.
You see how I have taken all her cares away. She is just as a child should be, without troubles, without worry.
Sure, negative feelings really suck, and I totally understand the desire to be able to casually switch them off, but life can lack depth and meaning without the full emotions catalogue. Not to mention, the downs of life can make us better appreciate the ups. Oh, and without our ability to feel sadness or guilt, we can't exercise regret or re-evaluate our mistakes, so it makes total sense that Maka becomes apologetic and repentant once she can feel all of her emotions again. As painful as negative feelings are, they can shape our moral compass and make us into more compassionate people.
You poor thing. What have I done? I've wasted the precious time you had left.
It's totally down to the audience to decide whether they forgive this witch, but to be fair, Maka does everything that she can to atone for her actions, as she finally uses her magic for good as an enchantress, all while now being okay with letting people risk the chance of getting hurt.
May the wind travel with you. May your journey be swift, for you carry the hope of all the She with you this dawn.
In return, the film frees her heartbroken spirit and reunites her with the son that she regrets cursing out of mercy. No one dares to pass the grouchy Mr. Nevercracker's spooky house because he always shouts at anyone who goes near his home. However, we soon learn that he just wants to protect people from his wife, Constance, whose vengeful ghost has possessed his house. This film does an excellent job at building up its creepy mystery around said haunted house. It's already an imposing and decrepit looking home, but there are also frequent hints of something far more sinister. The film embraces the subtlety and nuances of great horror filmmaking to toy with its young audience's fears, while also drawing them into guessing what on earth is going on. thus creating a chilling atmosphere that'll keep kids on their toes.
Hello?
Constance has fully embodied this building, to the point where the house is more of an organic being than any kind of livable domestic home, all while she shows intense strength as a poltergeist and a knack as a camouflage predator.
My awesome kite.
I could gush for ages over how amazingly characterized this house is too. There's so much personality and emotion bursting from its imaginatively projected face that it's easy to buy that a disturbed woman's spectre is residing within its walls. Special credit to Kathleen Turner for putting the physically demanding work into motion capturing herself into the house too, all so that she can inject an essence of a Constance performance into the creature's mannerisms. Now, Nutcracker acts as a strong red herring for this mystery, and our heroes are adamant that he's behind all the paranormal activity somehow. Yet, at the same time, the film drip feeds bits of info about his past, and soon we realise that maybe things are far more complicated than we anticipated. You see, it's later revealed that Constance was once an exploited circus act who was saved by the madly in love Nutcracker, but Constance's trauma defences and need to protect a new better life resulted in a tragic accident. This sad backstory not only explains why Constance remains vigilantly protective of her home, but also makes the haunting so much more emotionally complex. Because this spirit is a victim of a cruel society that shamelessly capitalized on her obesity, plus a grieving husband can't just simply let her go so easily.
Let her go.
But if I let her go, I'll have no one.
That being said, when Nutcracker is ready to finally end the nightmare, Constance abandons all need to pretend to be a house anymore and goes full dangerous monster as she mutates into something so inhuman and ferocious that it's hard to even see Constance in there anymore. Although, destroying the house is what's best for Constance's ghost, because it ends up freeing her at long last, as the film concludes with a villain defeat that's as heartbreaking as it is victorious, in a goodbye scene that chokes me up every single time.
Time to brush your teeth, wash your face, and say your prayers.
When Homer and Marge decide to go on a romantic date together, they end up hiring a last-minute childcarer, all while not knowing that they've just invited in a wanted criminal, the Babysitter Bandit. Season 1 episodes of The Simpsons tend to go under the radar when it comes to the show's golden age, but I think there's a charm to these early cartoons, because they were made at a time when the showrunners were experimenting with the series' identity, which is exactly how we ended up with the strange and dark villain, Miss Botts. A one-off antagonist that's just as intimidating as any of the more popular Simpsons baddies. To begin with, I love the look and movement of this criminal. She has this elongated, lanky and slouched design, as well as some strikingly fluid and rubbery animation for retro Simpsons standards. It's this eccentric art style that gives Botts an almost creature-like presence, which is perfect for a house invasion villain. The episode also cleverly uses a television crime watch show to build on a character and hype up a reputation. The kids are already disturbed while watching this late night report, but the shock of she's their babysitter is the nail on the coffin. What's truly creepy though, is the vagueness of Miss Botts' threats. The very idea that she's willing to hurt these kids is enough to disturb us, but the fact that she's not clear about how is even worse.
You're gonna do what I say, or I'm gonna do something to you. And I don't know what that is.
Sure, the most she ends up doing is tie them up and tape up their mouths, but that's still a twisted thing to do to kids. And it's not like child violence was ever off the table for her. Unfortunately, Adobe Homer misunderstands the situation and ends up saving Botts from the kids, which means that the Babysitter Bandit gets to escape scot-free and continue to traumatize other kids in the babysitting industry, which is a hell of a dark way to wrap up a family sitcom episode. If you enjoyed this list, then feel free to check out my other villain videos. I've been Jambariki. Cheerio, folks.